Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar, Should You Apply to an MBA this summer? My name is Martina and I'm the moderator of this webinar on behalf of Prep Advisor. Our speaker today is Barbara Coward. She has experience as an admission director, an MBA recruiter and marketing consultant for business schools across the globe. And today she will discuss the pros and cons of applying this summer to help you make an informed decision of whether you should start your MBA this year or or next year. Please type your questions in the Q&A box during the entire webinar, and our speaker will take time to give you an answer. But first, now let's check the sound. Could you please write in the chat box which country are you joining us from? Okay, everything is set. So Barbara, we can start with the presentation now.
Okay, perfect. Let me just get on the screen. Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and it's a pleasure to meet you all virtually and taking time out of your day for this 1-hour webinar. Very happy to answer your questions and delighted to provide some perspective. As I was introduced, my name is Barbara Coward, and I have worked in the MBA business school sector for more than a couple decades on kind of both sides of the fence of working with in business schools in both the US and the UK as an admissions director, and then also most recently working with prospective students and working with media as well. So I have a really, that's my name, 360 admissions view of the industry. So I'm mentioning all that because that's what I'm bringing to this in terms of that question of should you apply to an MBA this summer? I just know when you're thinking about embarking on this stage in your life, there's so many questions that you have, and they're not easy, a simple yes or no. And so I just wanted to share that all that I plan to bring to this. So should you apply to an MBA this summer? Okay. So my first thought that is, if you do want to apply to an MBA this summer, this will be your new best friend. You will be spending a lot of time with your laptop. Again, some people, although it's generally not advised, can whip out an application fairly quickly. But if you really want a thoughtful one and one that will be effective and influential with the admissions reader at the business schools to which you're applying, you really want to spend a lot of time working on it. So, from a practical sense, summer, I mean, it's my favorite season. There's so much to do, outside of a pandemic when, you can go outside and go to the beach, et cetera. So the first question I would ask yourself is, how do you want to spend your summer? If going to business school and starting your MBA sooner is so important to you that you don't mind sacrificing some of your free time, and instead of going out with your friends to the beach or whatever, to be actually working behind the laptop and working on your essays and filling out an application. Think about that, again, and there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just a matter of personal preference. I know for myself, when it's winter and it's cold and it's dark and it's snowing outside, I'm very happy to spend a lot of time behind my laptop. When the weather turns nice, I tend to want to be outside a bit more. But then again, if you have a goal that you want to achieve, by all means, focus on that. Okay, so we are going to continue with the summer beach theme. And again, the first question, and I know what I'm asking you all to do now, and then as you think about this going forward, is do a lot of reflection. I think that's really the best way to come up with an answer that's best for you to this question. Think about where you are today. Are you happy where you are today? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Are you where you want to be? Again, take stock of where you are. Almost like you're here on the edge and you're looking over the horizon. Are you okay staying at this edge, or do you want to be somewhere else beyond that horizon? Okay. And again, continuing with our metaphor, ask yourself the question, where do you want to be tomorrow? Again, you're on the edge by the shore. Where do you want to get to? And think of business school and the MBA as your personal sailboat of getting you to where you want to go. Okay, and depending on how you adjust the sails, that'll tell you where you want to end up being and what direction you want to go to. So again, think about, spend some time a year from now. Do I want to be in the same place, or do I want to be somewhere else? And also, do I want to be on the way, on the journey to my destination as well? So think a lot about the future. Now, that's easier said than done because it's a tough question to answer anytime, but particularly now during a pandemic. The uncertainty is really off the charts in terms of deciding what to do and trying to predict what business schools are going to be doing. I've had so many conversations with prospective students that will say, you know what? If I know that classes will be in person and not online or hybrid, yeah, I'll start this semester. Or if I know this, I will do it. Or if I know that it'll be easier to get into this year and there won't be as many applications. Again, there are trends that you can go back to. You know, one of the trends is that during a recession, generally applications tend to increase. However, for international students, certainly coming to the US, and I appreciate that all of you might be looking at schools in the US, but perhaps Canada or the UK or Europe or Asia, somewhere else. We don't know what the visa situation is going to be like. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty. So this really is just to appreciate that and to keep in mind that as you make a decision and it's going to feel frustrating and difficult, perhaps at times, that's because there's so much uncertainty, more than there ever was in the past. So give yourself a break. Don't be too hard on yourself if you can't come to an answer right away. Again, anytime you make a decision with uncertainty and with limited data, it's a tough one to make. So just be mindful of that is my advice. Having said that, I want to share a resource that I learned about recently, and it's provided by the managing director of the full-time MBA program, excuse me, at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. And it's from an article that she wrote fairly recently, a couple weeks ago, called "Yes, Now Really Is the Best Time to Apply." I didn't put the whole article up here, but I just took the matrix from the article. I won't go through all of it, but basically she is advocating to make this kind of a decision, put together a matrix and basically say, these are your two options. You know, I can either stay working right now, or I could start my MBA right now. And this is what it would look like this fall if I started it, or if I didn't start it. And this is what it would look in 2 years' time. You know, this is for a 2-year program. Obviously, it's a 1-year program or 18 months, you adjust it accordingly, but this is what it would look like. And again, the uncertainty is referenced in the top cells right there. You know, stay-at-home orders are lifted, stay-at-home orders continue. We don't know. It depends on location. Even when you take a big country like the US, it depends state by state. Secondly, we don't know what the economy is going to do. Will the economy recover quickly? Will it not? We just don't know. So basically, do that and think about what the impact would be with each of those scenarios. Again, I'm going back in time from my business school experience, which is a long time ago, but we had a faculty member who was previously at Cambridge, and he was all into scenario planning. Look at different scenarios and figure out what that would look like for you. So again, this is a wonderful resource. I thought it was super helpful. Please, encourage you to look up the article. She explains it a lot better than I'm doing right now in the interest of time, but that might be a really helpful tool. Okay. So again, I'm going back to the uncertainty. There's no crystal ball. It's really, really tough to make a decision when you can't predict. I have a lot of times, and a little bit off topic, but still relevant, prospective students will email me or reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, you know what, I'm just wondering if it's worth my time to apply. Like, do I have a shot at it? This is my GMAT score, this is my undergraduate degree. And many times, in all honesty, it's really hard to make that call or decision with limited information. It really is the whole picture, and you really need to have that. But it's hard to tell because the schools are making a decision and we're not privy to all the different factors that go into it. We can become more knowledgeable about that. We can sign up for webinars. We can, talk to somebody like me or follow me on social media, provide a lot of information, or somebody else to help. But at the end of the day, it's difficult to make a decision, and I would caution against making a decision based on what you think the schools will do. Gosh, you know what? I'll apply if I think the applications are going to be easier. The semester won't be as big. Oh gosh, I won't apply if I think the volume's going to be high. I mean, there's so many examples from history, from politics, where people thought one thing was going to happen and then surprise, something else happened. So recognize that. If I had a crystal ball, that would be absolutely wonderful. Unfortunately, I do not. But what I can offer you virtually, and then, wherever you're located within your home, a mirror. My advice is to forget about what's happening around the world or figuring out kind of like strategizing, oh, the school does this or the program does that, and this are my chances or whatever. Put that all aside and look in the mirror and look at yourself and just say, what do I want? Do I want to do this now? I'm going to put all that noise, everything else that's going on behind the scenes, and I'm going to just focus on me and what I want and where I want to go, thinking back to that sailboat, where do I want to be? And is this the time for me to do that? Okay. Maybe it is, and maybe it's not. But really spend a lot of time self-reflection, thinking about, your day, what you do, how you feel, all of that is part of that. So again, focus on yourself here. Okay. And as part of that, one thing I always suggest is to answer the question about how do you feel about the status quo? How do you feel about your life right now? Are you okay with it? Are you happy with it? I'm going to go into that a little bit, next slide, a little bit deeper. But if you are okay with the status quo and you're okay being in the same place next year at this time that you are now, then I would say you don't really have to apply this summer. But if you are not happy with the status quo, if you aren't satisfied, if it just doesn't feel right, then why wouldn't you make a change to make something better? Again, it's kind of the risk versus reward, but if the status quo isn't working for you, then there seems to be less of a risk to change that status quo. And again, it's not an all or nothing, it's not black or white. It really is a degree, again, how intense are those feelings? And I'll just flip to the next slide to go into a little bit more detail here. So again, when I work with prospective students, I always will say, what was the catalyst for doing an MBA? What made you want to do that? And I've done some marketing work with schools as well, where I'll interview current students and alums. I'll say, what made you, decide to apply in the first place? Seldom do people just get up in the morning and think, you know what? I think I'm going to go to Starbucks and I think I'll get an MBA. It usually is something else is going on in their lives, personal, professional, a combination of both. And so pay attention to the feelings that you have. Are you feeling bored? Do you go to the office or wherever that may be? Maybe now it's the home office. I mean, you're just not challenged, you're not learning anything. Are you just really just kind of not really feel like you're doing anything, you're not getting anywhere? That's a feeling to pay attention to. Are you frustrated? A lot of times people, as they move up in their careers, the more experience you have and the more you see, the more you kind of observe how things could or should change. So you can get frustrated. You could say, why did the leadership not pursue this product development rollout? This is a great idea. I have a really good sense that the market would be so receptive to that. And then what happens with that is that you start to feel frustrated. You think the leadership of the company or the organization is not going where you think in your heart it really needs to go. And so you get frustrated. And again, it could be on a big scale. It could be a small scale with a little operational process. Whatever it is, if you're feeling frustrated in the workplace, again, that's another sign that you want to pay attention to. Stuck? Again, do you feel like you've gotten to a place where you're like, there's nowhere else for me to go? There is, or maybe it's just not realistic in terms of other people being in those roles and they're not going to move on. But if you feel like you're stuck, human beings are not meant or developed to be stuck. We're growth beings. We're focused on growth and continuous improvement and all of that. And so if you're feeling stuck in your career, then that would suggest to me that you might want to start your MBA a little bit sooner for that, and perhaps start this summer. Unhappiness, so much time that we spend is with our work and our career and our employer, that if you're unhappy or you're not satisfied, that's something else. It's no way to live to get up on a Sunday and then dread going to work on Monday. Trust me, I've been there. I've worked in careers that were very interesting, but really weren't that fulfilling. And then case in point, when I started working with MBAs and programs and students and all of that, all of a sudden I would be looking at my watch on a Friday night going, it is 7 o'clock. Why haven't I left the office yet? Because I love what I'm doing. Again, what are some of the things that you're doing that you feel, quote, in the zone, and you're really, really happy doing at work versus what you're not happy? Again, life is short. It's too short to be unhappy. So again, factor that into the decision. Now, the next one that I have sounds a little bit kind of interesting because I have envious, but it really is true. I mean, we all are human beings. We all have emotions. It is hard not to be at work and seeing other people getting a promotion, deserved or not deserved, and you not doing that way, or other people moving up or getting on. Again, if other people are doing things and you're like, I want to do that too, and I'm feeling left out, and I'm kind of jealous of this person that they get to do that. And it can be a good thing too. A lot of times I'll talk to people and I'll say, why do you think about doing an MBA? Well, I started to go to all these meetings and I realized all these people who really had some cool ideas had MBAs. And again, it's not being envious per se, but it's a little bit of, I kind of want to be like them. And so again, that's another feeling that's telling you something. And the last one, but certainly not the least, there are plenty of these, we could have 10 slides on this, being authentic to yourself. Are you somebody who really feels that what you're doing is who you are? Again, when I worked in Boston a couple decades ago, let's just put it that way, in financial services, it was great. I did a great job. I got promotions and all of that. But it's not what I loved to do. I mean, I loved content, I loved writing, and I was at one point a division controller working on Excel spreadsheets. That wasn't true to who I was. It paid the bills and gave me a nice paycheck, but I wasn't being authentic to myself. And certainly what I do now is very authentic to what I do, and that increases satisfaction. So again, if you are, for example, passionate, think about what you're passionate about. If you are passionate about social responsibility, but your company has no interest in that at all, then you're not being authentic to yourself. And so that means you need to be in a place where you can be yourself as well. It can be, again, it's not a bad or a good thing, it's just what it is. Somebody could be in the military for 20 years and say, I've got some entrepreneurial kind of tendencies. I have some ideas of companies that I want to start, and I'm not really into this kind of the culture of the military. Again, that's authenticity. So and again, it's degrees, shades of gray. If it's a little bit, then maybe you can hang on a little bit here, but if it's becoming pretty intense, then you want to start your MBA this summer. Then you want to, move and do something as soon as you can. Okay. And I do a ridiculous amount of reading of the industry. I just love it so much. And over the weekend, I saw this article by the executive MBA career coach at Kellogg, and it's a really good article. I didn't put the name on here, but I can always get it to you. You probably could Google his name and it'll pop up. And it was geared towards executive MBA students. So if you're interested in a full-time program or a specialized master's or something else, I mean, the same principles apply. But I thought this was there's so many good quotes, but this is one really good one. What this person has learned, who has been a coach for a long time, is that when your career is in alignment with who you are as an individual, you will prosper. And that's what you want in life. You want to prosper. You don't want to suffer in an unhappy job. You don't want to suffer by not, being limited in your chance to grow and to advance, etc. You want to thrive. And so when your career is in alignment with who you are as a person, what's meaningful to you, that's when you'll see great things happen. That's when your career will take off. That's where you'll find all the opportunities. So again, this is just a little nugget from that article, but I thought it was a really, really good one. Okay. So now we're back to square one. What do you do? Yes or no? And I almost want to say it's a little bit like, the metaphor of a scale. Which way are you leaning? Which way, do you want to go? And that goes into my next slide of the pros and cons. Again, everyone will be different. This is just my 2 cents, so to speak, of some of the pros and cons that I see. You might have some others. You may talk to somebody else who might have some additional ones as well. From my perspective, if you applied for your MBA this summer, time is everything. On the plus side, you are closer to your career goals. You're one step further being to where you want to be. You're that sailboat, and you're a little bit further away from the shore to get into your destination. So again, you show momentum, you show movement, you're doing something. I think nothing feels worse when you feel like you don't have control and you can't do something. So again, when you're doing that, all of a sudden you'll be surprised. Maybe your job that you don't like, you actually can tolerate it a little bit more, that you're going home after work or to another room in your house if you're in lockdown right now, and you're working on your application and working on your essays or your resume. You just feel like you're doing something. The other thing I was going to say in terms of a pro is it really is a dress rehearsal. And these are 2 words together that were used by admissions officers in a conference I attended actually last week today. And they talked about in a little bit different scenario. They were talking about people who had applied to start in the fall, in September, but then because of the uncertainty with COVID and whether classes would be online or in person, they were thinking about deferring. And some schools had a time limit. Harvard Business School, for example, you had up to a certain point, you could decide if you could defer, no problems. Other schools had no deferrals allowed. I mean, it was really dependent on each particular school, what their policy was. But their answer in terms of people wanting to defer was like, you know what? This is like a dress rehearsal. And even if you are thinking about this and apply and you don't get in, you can reapply in the next cycle without a penalty. It is not looked as, well, in the past, it may have been, like, oh gosh, this person applied in round 2, they didn't get in, so they're applying in round 3, but what else have they done? What leadership experience have they done? What extracurriculars, what's different? All that, the rule book, throw it out the window this year. The pandemic has changed everything. And schools are basically saying, again, check with each one individually, but by and large, what I'm hearing is that you can apply, and if you don't get in, it's not a negative. They don't think badly upon you. In fact, if anything, they think of it as a very positive thing that you show commitment. So, you can apply. And if you do apply this summer and you don't get in, you can definitely, reapply. And the other thing I wanted to mention about that too is interesting in a lot of these kind of different conferences and MBA fairs events, the head of admissions, managing director, title like that at MIT Sloan, shared some insight that I thought was super interesting. And he was talking about people that they had rejected in the past. And maybe they applied and they applied twice and even 3 times, and it took 3 times for that person to get accepted. And it was a very candid conversation in which he said, you know what? We realized we made a mistake when we first didn't accept them. We realized what a fantastic student they were, how incredible they were in class and cohort environment and contributing. And we were like, why did we not accept them? So, schools do make mistakes. Everyone's human. And, you can apply and not get accepted. And it's a very personal thing. I've worked with people and I know all too well, it is, you put a lot of time into it. It's maybe a school of your dreams, and then you're all that time is just for one click and you get the answer right there, then. And if it's not the answer you hope for, it feels very, very personal. But, you know, the reason why I wanted to mention that story and example is because they do make mistakes. And so again, if you apply now and then don't get in and reapply, you're just increasing your chances of putting your hat in the ring, for example, so many times. So again, keep that in mind. Another aspect to think about is with that uncertainty, we don't know what the economy is going to do worldwide. We don't know what the job market is going to be. You know, some sectors are doing pretty well right now because of everything that's happening. Other sectors not doing as well. Maybe you want to ride out the storm. Maybe you work in retail or hospitality. I have somebody I worked with who actually worked in DC at a small boutique hotel. So you can imagine what the pandemic and did that. She worked in marketing for her career there, and it just so happened she had already decided to apply for an MBA, and she will be going to one this fall. She's accepted at one and on the wait list for 2 others. So again, if you're in an industry where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, maybe you want to hunker down and ride out the storm in business school. You know, it is an amazing time to be in business school, to do your MBA. The world is one huge case study. You know, I can't even go a day without seeing a faculty member at any business school writing about in a blog or an article or quoted in, you know, the Financial Times or the Economist or whatever, talking about the lessons learned about leadership, how to lead at a time when you have a remote workforce, for example, crisis management, how to manage in a crisis and keep your team calm and positive. The supply chain. This has completely blown the supply chain out of the window. What are the supply chains of the future going to look like? If you were thinking about doing an MBA, this is, I mean, the faculty members, the professors, they are just, you know, rolling up their sleeves and diving into all the lessons and research that's happening as a result of what's happening. So if you're going to get value out of an MBA, I think this year, if you started now, you're going to get an incredible amount of value because it's fresh on everyone's minds. It's what the faculty are thinking about or talking about. It's what the students in the class will be talking about as well. So it is, you know, it'll be the most amazing case study in a classroom that I think business schools have ever seen, because there's just so many different facets that are part of that. Okay, so again, those are some of the pros that I was thinking of. In terms of the kind of not so good side, I'm going back to the very beginning and that time commitment. You know, again, you can just whip it out an application overnight. I don't recommend it. Sometimes I think our industry says, kind of goes the other direction and says like, oh gosh, you have to start the process 6 months in advance. I don't think that's necessarily true. I've seen people do it sooner without that. But again, whatever time that you do, it's going to take emotional energy and it's going to be a time commitment. What do you want to do this summer? If it's really important for you to travel with your family, you know, again, think about that. You know, think about what your values are, but recognize that if you do apply this summer, you're going to be spending a lot of time working on this. The other aspect of this is letters of recommendation. I always advise folks applying to business school that you want to start with parts of your application that are outside of your control. Again, if you're writing the essays, not that I advise it, but you could stay up all night the night before the application deadline and write the essays. Will you have a good essay? Probably not, but you'll get it done. And that's in your, you know, in your control. What's not in your control is, for example, your letters of recommendation. You know, you can't write them for your recommenders. They have to write them for you. And so again, people are busy, people have schedules, all of that. And I cannot tell you how many times I've spoken with clients who are, you know, again, they're diving into their essays, they're moving along real fast, and they're like, oh, I asked this one person to be a recommender for me, and they still haven't gotten to it. I'm really nervous because the deadline's coming up. Again, it just adds stress to the process. So, you know, and it doesn't have to be a con, but one thing to think about is, would your people who you'd ask to write letters of recommendation, could they do it for you in time? You know, again, and how would that impact the relationship? Again, because you always have to be strategic too, and in terms of an ask. And if you ask somebody to write a letter of recommendation and they're like, listen, I am super busy, but okay, I will do this for you and turn it around 24 hours, then you have to be careful what you ask for next time. And again, people will do favors up to a certain point. So again, think about, how available and receptive your recommenders are to writing letters. The other thing is, how well do you know the schools? I know what does not go over really well is like, hey, I think applications will probably be easier to get into. I think I'll apply to the school now because you know what? They look really good in a ranking and I like the sound of it and I like to be in that city. That does not go over well, and that will come across in your application. They really want to know that you know the schools. Now, tougher than it was in the past because you can't go to campus, you can't sit in classes, but they're offering so many different virtual options. You can talk to current students, etc. But apply this summer if you feel like you have enough time to really know the school to which you're applying and how the school plus you will get you on that sailboat to go to where you want to go. Okay? So again, if you don't feel like you have enough time to really get a sense of the school and what its culture is like and what the people are like, then that wouldn't be good applying this summer. And the other thing is, are you ready? Is this a good time for you? Again, schools will often say like, should I apply? People will say, should I apply in round 1? Is it easier to get into versus round 3, etc. As it so happened, you never know what happens. The pandemic, in some ways, made it easier in round 3. Kind of again threw that rule book out the window because some schools, such as Darden, were eliminating the need to take the or accepting other tests besides the GMAT. Kellogg, for example, eliminated the need to take a GRE or GMAT. I'm working with somebody right now who's applying specifically because of that, as well as some other reasons. He had obviously wanted to go there. But, again, are you ready for this time in life? And maybe you are, and maybe you aren't. I mean, I talked to somebody recently who would have been great to have started this year or even, a year from now, but he really wanted to get more work experience so he could bring that into the classroom. So again, how do you feel? Are you ready for this? And again, an industry conference that I was at last week at this time, and I had the permission from the gentleman here who's the director of global marketing and recruitment at Imperial College, previously to the same role, more or less, at London Business School. And it was funny because I'd already signed up to do this webinar, and he just brought this up, and I thought, this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm doing the webinar about. And so I asked for his permission to quote him, and he gave me this. And his argument about should you apply this summer, it's like, why wouldn't you? This is a time where business school will be really fighting for you and for your career. You have an entire machine in the business school that will be behind you when you need it most, okay? And it's not just the careers office, and it's the faculty, and it's the other students and the alums. Schools, I shouldn't say I think, but my perception has been is that they feel really, really bad what has happened. Again, outside of their control. Students signed up to start last year. They don't sign up to finish in an online experience, but it is what it is, and it happened. And so I've been impressed at how they're going above and beyond to increase the experience for the students. An example of which is, okay, maybe you were going to have a guest speaker come to campus and they can't travel now. Well, now there's no geographical restrictions. Now they can have somebody who's fairly prominent, a business person, speak in a virtual session to the students. And so again, they are doing, I've seen emails go out to alums for helping out the current students. They are really doing whatever they can to help people. There is, I've heard this time again, the head of admissions at Harvard Business School, for example, wrote a blog and basically said, we understand what's happening. If you got laid off from your job, if you're furloughed or whatever, this is a really exceptional circumstance. So if you feel like your resume has a gap or has, something because of what happened this year, and that would put you at a disadvantage for applying, don't think that way. Everyone, they're incredibly empathetic is the word that I've heard over and over again. Okay, and I'm going to quickly go because I'm not running out of time, but I want to make sure I answer your questions. So hopefully I've made it easier for you. If I have made it harder, which I apologize, and you're still undecided, this is where I would, talk to as many people as you can. I found that is generally a great way to go. Talk to current students and alums from the school, faculty, talk to your family and friends, put a post on social media saying, hey guys, do you think I should go to business school this year? What do you think? Talk to your former colleagues and current colleagues and your boss, people who really know you and people who you trust, have your best interests at heart, and get their thoughts and get their feedback. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone tells you to do something and you do it because everyone else is telling you to do that, but it's a data point. And it's something where you can say like, this is an interesting trend. I'm starting to see everyone kind of go in this direction. I'm going to pay attention to that. I'm ultimately going to make my decision, but I'm going to pay attention to that. Okay. And I wanted to be super practical as well, because this would be great to say like, oh, should you apply this summer or not? And then if you have no options to apply and it's too late, that doesn't help you very much. So I went online, and there are some schools. I know these are all US schools. You might have an interest in schools abroad. So keep that in mind. These are just US schools, and some of the other schools. I know some of them have passed, so I didn't put them on there. But it is not too late. And I put it in order of kind of like the most relaxing one first, just in terms of having the most time to apply. Tepper, they have a new final round, and it's July 31st. That's Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. They're really known for their analytics. They're a STEM school. UVA Darden, I mentioned, they extended the round 3 deadline to July 15th. They will accept your SAT score. If you take that in the US, a CPA, a whole bunch of different things instead of the GMAT or GRE. So that has been, I have heard that has been the most flexible and accommodating school of all of them out there. I think there are some other ones that are doing a great job too, but certainly they have gone really out of their way to make it possible for people to apply this summer with as much ease as possible. Tina Flagler, University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, they have extended that to July 13th. Georgetown McDonough, they have rolling admissions until June 24th. I worked with a couple of people that have gotten to there, as well as some of the other schools. And MIT Sloan, again, it's coming up. You're looking at the calendar. You have to hustle, but they extended their deadline to June 15th. So again, these are only, 5 schools, so they're not all of them, but it gives you, some encouragement that if you really want to get going on it, you do have some options. Again, going back to the thing is, you don't want to go apply to school just because it's the only one that's left that you can apply to. You really want to make sure it's the place you want to go to. But if it is, you definitely have some options there. Okay, and I'm almost there. So thank you for your patience. And I always love ending with an inspirational quote. And you can see that the advice, to be honest, I forget who actually said this, but if you Google it, I'm sure you can find it on the web. You can never cross the ocean until you have courage to lose sight of the shore. So no matter when you apply, I have seen people who have turned out to be great, people who just doubt themselves. Maybe it's because of GPA, they didn't do as well as they could, or maybe they had a work experience that was a very painful or distressing time in their lives. And so it's kind of like, I don't feel ready yet. I don't want to do that. Whenever you're going to apply, whether it's, the summer or another time coming up, you can't get to where you want to go until you have the strength to say, I'm ready to give up something. I'm ready to leave the shore behind me to think about where I'm going to go. And that's something just I always like to leave as a parting word to think about. And then finally, last thing is good luck. I am such a proponent and believer in the value of an MBA for personal reasons. I've been in this field for, I said, more than 2 decades. So I am an advocate of doing it whenever it's best to do it for you. I do think this is a really interesting time to do that, to start and apply this summer. But I just wanted to wish you best of luck. And like I said, I love this industry. I'm always putting content out there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on my company on Facebook and Twitter. You can just go into my website. I have it in the lower left-hand corner. You go there and you just scroll all the way down and you'll see tweets and the social media icons and all of that. I'm always putting a lot of stuff out. So much so that I really need to find time to read a really good book. I haven't done that. I do way too much studying and research in the MBA world. So with that, thank you so much. And I just wanted to say it looks like we have 15 minutes or so to answer questions, and I'm very happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for your presentation. Thank you a lot. And now it's time for the questions. And I will start with the first one. So it's, do you think that this year will be a good year to start an MBA degree in this economic situation?
That's a great question, and that's something that a lot of people are wrestling with. I go back to what the admissions head and marketing head of Imperial said, that having that school behind, in your corner to fight with you. Again, we're dealing with so much uncertainty that, again, how you discover careers and how you discover jobs or whatever are through your connections. And I don't want to limit to that because it's so much more than that, but nonetheless, you're basically entering a new network, and it's just not the current students in your class, it's the alums, it's faculty members. I remember when I finished my MBA, the program director, who wasn't actually the program director at the time, he was a finance professor, told me about a job. I was in the UK in Bristol at the time, and I couldn't take it because I was married into family business. I had to be in a certain geographic area. But those are the things that you benefit from. And so again, if you, both from a professional and a career side, as well as a leadership development side, and I'll tell you what, if you learn how to lead as a result of what's going on in the world right now, you'll be prepared to do anything. I mean, it really is that way. I think it's a great time. I know schools, I will say, are very, very, very receptive and eager for applicants to apply. Again, and Kellogg has made this very clear to us as well. Just because they don't require the GMAT or GRE right now to apply this summer, and that deadline is coming up on June 1st, so that's one of the ones that's really close, doesn't mean that they're lowering their standards at all. It means that they're going to be looking at other parts of their application. And in fact, I asked the head of admissions this, to give that evidence that you have that academic ability to be in the program. So again, they won't have your GMAT or your GRE, but they will have your transcript, and they'll be able to see about your academic ability from your transcript, from your letters of recommendation, perhaps if you have an academic one as well. So I don't see a whole lot of downside of I'm going to get my wording right. I think it's a great time to apply, but again, it's easy for me to say because I'm not the one who's going to be, writing the essays late at night. It's going to be your time as well. But if you have an inkling and you're thinking of getting started, I say, why not?
Thank you for the answer. Another question sounds like this. Do you think we can benefit equally from online start of the year in comparison to the on-campus start?
Oh my gosh, I love that question. And I've had people ask me that as well. I have somebody with whom I worked who got into Harvard Kennedy School. And it's interesting because she's like, I didn't get in just to start online. Like if I want to go, I want to, be there on campus. And I certainly get that. And my response to her was it's Harvard. Even their online experience is going to be pretty amazing. It's not going to be ideal. It's not going to be the same as being in person. But I will say that schools, again, the deans, the admissions heads, the faculty members, they feel really, really bad. I mean, again, nothing that they did. They didn't cause a pandemic or anything like that. But they just feel so bad because their livelihood and their passion, their avocation is educating students and having them have the best experience possible. But now, they have to consider safety. So they feel pretty bad that, the experience wasn't what students this year had hoped for. And so they're really going out of their way to quote unquote make it up. I mean, you can't make it up completely by opening the campus in some cases. But they're bringing in guest speakers, like I said, who, maybe not come to class before, or maybe doing some additional things online. I will tell you this, I don't think any of the schools wants to start online or even do a hybrid. I think they're eager. They're pretty much like my hairdresser, I think, feels right now. He can't wait to get back to work. And I'm going to be the first one in line. But, you know, they really want to bring things back, quote unquote, to normal. So they will be doing everything in their power to do so, but they certainly have to abide by the regulations and safety practices and whatever. So if you're okay with doing it online, again, we're looking at the situation. I mentioned this in a meeting I had the other day of what's going on in the world right now. So it's easy to say, hey, I don't want to do an online program. I think I'm going to skip and do it a year. Okay. Now, knocking on wood, this isn't going to be this way forever. October could look very different. November could look very different. You might start off online and then, or hybrid, and then be in classes by November. And then all of a sudden you'll be like, you know something? I am really glad I did that because it wasn't so bad. And now I'm that much closer to finishing this year. So again, try to take the perspective of not just now, but 6 months from now or a year from now in terms of, do I want to do the online or the in-person one? And I will say again, these are schools, and from what I've seen, and I've read all sorts of blogs from, which one was there one recently? I think there was one on Yale MBA on their website, and it talked about what the experience was like with taking virtual classes. And again, it's not the same, but they're making it, and everyone's pulling in. Current students are, you know, having their clubs online, et cetera, to make it the best possible experience possible. You know, again, it's like if you got into a top school and you know, had to start online, that's a lot better than not getting into a top school. So that's how I would look at it.
Thank you so much for this answer. Another question is for those who need visas, and it's like this. Do you think that schools offer more deferrals this year, like if we cannot get visas?
Yes. They are definitely, certainly aware. Again, it's, you know, beyond your control and, you know, simply on their control. So from what I've seen, again, it's a case-by-case basis. You have to, you know, ask the school, and some do have, you know, certain deadlines, et cetera. But I would rather have you, if there's a school to which you want to apply, but you're kind of worried about the visa process, I would much rather have you not like self-select not to apply, rather have you think, you know what, I'm going to find out the answer to this. So, you know, hey, you know what, I think I might want to do University of Michigan, Ross Business School. I'm going to reach out to their admissions office and ask them and see if it's possible. Again, these people who typically have been on campus in an office with all their colleagues are now, like everyone else, working from home. And they love helping applicants. It's why they do these roles. And so, you know, please, one thing I see is people often get intimidated about reaching out to the admissions office, like, oh, I'm kind of scared, or what if I have a typo in it? Seriously, I mean, these people, I haven't met any that have bit yet. There, you know, there's some that certainly are friendlier than others, but, you know, they are just really, really receptive to answering questions. And so I would check with the school specifically and see what the options are.
Thank you for the answer. Another question is regarding the resume. Do we have to include all of our jobs in our resume? What do you think?
Okay, so that's a great question. And this is where I encourage people to shift perspective. So what I mean by that is when you're applying to business school, you're in your world, in your corner, and you're working on your resume and you're thinking, and you want to get everything perfect and cross the T's and dot the I's and all that. Take yourself out of yourself and put yourself on the other side of the person who's reading your application. How do you feel about your resume there? Do you feel like it covers everything? Do you feel like that says enough that you'd be a competitive candidate for the program? Does it raise any red flags? So again, I work with candidates where I'm like, okay, I'm looking at your resume as you have it now before we, you know, work on a little bit, and I'll see a gap. And the admissions officer is going to, just the way our brains work, if there's something, information that's not complete, we automatically have a negative. It's just the way we're wired. It's really interesting neuroscience that we automatically have a negative thing, like, oh my gosh, you know, they were out of work for 3 years. What happened to them in their last job? When the fact of the matter is they could be taking care of a sick relative, et cetera. And that's where they have the optional essays to explain that. So again, you don't have to put every single job, but do it so it doesn't frame your resume in a way that doesn't create doubt, doesn't raise any red flags, and provides it is your pitch. You're selling yourself, in a way through your resume. That's prime real estate. Make it work for you the best you can. Everyone's a little different in terms of the order in which they review the materials. I would always look at the application first and then the resume first. And so I always say, especially too, when you're putting your first job on there, to make sure you put a lot of, really nail that, because that's going to be the first impression in terms of your work experience. But it's perfectly fine not to have every job in there, but just make sure it, like if you don't have 5 jobs on there, it's going to look weird.
Thanks a lot for the answer. Another question, it sounds like this. If I already have decided to postpone my MBA application for the next year, should I reconsider to change the program with a different run from this I have chosen for 2020?
Okay, so it sounds like, if I understand the question correctly, that you're basically saying, hey, I've already decided to postpone my application. I was thinking about this particular school, but you know what? Maybe I should apply to another school. Absolutely keep your options open. Use this time to research schools. I always say, follow schools on social media, get their email newsletter, get a feel for their culture, see what else is out there. One thing that I certainly do when I work with people, and I encourage them to, is like, okay, what is your short list? Okay, these are schools. Okay, well, do you know that there's another school that could also achieve your objective? Or maybe we need a safety school in here or whatever. Again, and this goes back to talking to as many people as you can. And, all the schools, for the most part, have ambassadors, MBA students that you can reach out to. Yeah, you don't have to. You can still apply to that school that you were going to apply to for 2020. But think about, again, that sailboat metaphor. Where do you want to go? Do you want to work in project management? Do you want to work in, real estate, wherever you want to go? And what school would be the best fit for you, for you to get you professionally to where you want to go? And then also has the culture. Cultures are very different at different schools. I've been to quite a number of campuses, and I've been to the campus at Columbia. Now, they were building a new business school that will be open, I think, in a year or so. But that feels very, very different than being at Tuck or being at London Business School. I presented a session on how to interview for your application at SEEBS in China, in Shanghai. Again, they all feel very, very different. So use this as a gift to basically say, like, okay, now I have another year. Let me see what else is out there. Maybe in the end you end up still just applying to that same one, but maybe there's another one that you feel like would be a good fit as well.
Thanks a lot for this answer. Another answer that it's coming is about the research. What is the best way to make a proper MBA research if I'm starting my preparation this summer? Which is the thing with the greatest weight? Is it location, fees, ranking? What is your advice?
So, oh boy, I could do a whole session with you on rankings. I have a lot of thoughts about that. I think rankings are indeed, though, helpful as a starting point, because some people have a sense of what type of school they want to go to. I've worked with people who are like, it's Harvard, Stanford, or Wharton, or nowhere. I've had other people say it's got to be top 10 or it's got to be top 20. And so I think, how do you feel about having a particular brand on your resume and LinkedIn profile? Because it does say something about you, and it does say a lot about it in identity. And I think that's why this is such a complicated process of applying to business school, because it's all part of that. It's not just, just buying something for the heck of it and, it doesn't really say anything about you. This is almost like choosing a car, and what does that say about you? So, excuse me. So when it comes to research, I think one of the best ways, again, the easiest things I say is, whatever channel you use all the time, like, don't sign up for one that you don't use, because then, we only have so many hours in a day. But if you're a big Instagram fan and you're thinking okay, maybe I want to play Tuck, sign up to follow Tuck on Instagram. You'll get a feel for the culture in terms of what pictures are shared, what stories are told, the writing, all of that. from a school. I think that's a really great way to research. So that's kind of more of a passive approach, like deciding some and just picking those. And then also doing webinars with schools. Again, one of the best ways is to visit campus. Right now, it's really tough to do that. Again, that'll open up at some point. We don't know when. Hello, uncertainty. But definitely do the webinars is a terrific way to get a feel for the school and what they offer. But as a first point, rankings might give you a sense of what kind of school, where you want to go to.
Thank you for this answer. And regarding the rankings, there are another question that sounds like this. Are top ranked schools better in terms of investment and payback?
I'm sorry, I just missed the beginning of that. Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, of course. Are top ranked schools better in terms of investment and payback?
Got it. Okay. This is another thing where it's like, how many minutes do we have left? I need more than 3 on this. You know, by and large, the rule of thumb and the kind of the party line, if you will, or the, you know, accepted knowledge is that top ranked schools have a better ROI. You know, again, in terms of the brand recognition, in terms of the opportunities, in terms of the networks, all of that, you know. And I always do tell people that if you have like offers from free schools, you know, I have this person I was talking to got into one school and is on the wait list for 2 higher ranked schools. And one of them is like one of the top, you know, 3 or whatever. And I said to her, like, yeah, why wouldn't you want to, you know, go to the top ranked school? But can you get your needs met at the other school that you actually like the culture and the campus and the town? I mean, so it's very personal. I will say I do think, based on my research and my just paying attention in the industry, I don't think, I was gonna say non-top ranked schools, but schools that aren't in the top get as much media time as they deserve. I have, again, through my working with, doing marketing work with schools, I've worked with some schools that haven't been in the top rankings, and I've met the students and talked to them who have had the same career outcomes, who've had a similar experience, who it has met their needs, you know, maybe benefited from a scholarship that they might not gotten from another school. Again, how important is that branding? If you're driving your car, does it matter to you what other people say is on the ornament on the top front of the car, or does it not? I think that's very personal answer. I will say there are some schools, again, that I've seen too. If you want to go into, you know, MBA, the most prestigious consulting firms, you know, you might say, oh, I have to go to, you know, Booth or Wharton or Harvard or Stanford. You know, there are other schools that I've seen where I've, you know, read blogs and or certainly worked with them where I'm like, hey, they have somebody from this school who's working there as well. So again, think about how much, you know, that prestige and that name means to you. But having said that, I always say, ideally, you want to go to the best school you can get into.
Thanks a lot for this answer. And I believe this was the last question. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Barbara, for your wonderful presentation and for your best advices given. Review the upcoming webinars on our website on prepadvisor.com. And we are looking forward to meet you in the next upcoming events. On behalf of PrepAdvisor, we wish you good luck in your academic journey and hope to meet you soon again. Thanks, Barbara, again.
My pleasure.
Goodbye to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.